Welcome back to the NC State Insider Podcast. I am your host and lead beat writer for NC State on SI, Tucker Sennett, joining you here tonight to discuss some Wolfpack football. Late night pod here. Got to it a little bit late in the day, and we're gonna just run through a few quick surprises of the 2025 season before we call it a night here in Raleigh for the NC State football program. I think coming into the season, there were some things that seemed more likely than others. I think a lot of people expected CJ Bailey to take the leap that he has taken, although one of my surprises does have to do with Bailey. Um, I think a lot of people expected this offense to look a little bit better with just a different voice leading it in Kurt Roper. I think, this team has lost some games that it was expected to lose, and it's won some games that I think surprised a lot of people. That Wake Forest game for sure, was not a game that NC State probably would have won last year, going behind early and coming all the way back. That Virginia game, beating a team that has turned out to be a college football playoff contender, has certainly come to a surprise for a lot of Wolfpack fans, but not amongst the five biggest. So let's dive in. My first surprise of the 2025 season is that Justin Joly is not the Wolfpack leading receiver through the first five games. There's a lot of uncertainty about this receiver group coming into the season, and Joly was just, you know, so stellar down the stretch of the season last year, led the team in receiving, and look poised to be that number one target in 2025. And it's been Terrell Anderson. It's been the collective of this receiver group. And Joly's back there, in second with 264 receiving yards, not far behind, or well, he is far behind Anderson. He's almost 200 yards behind, but he is still a focal point, but he just hasn't been what I think it's more an indictment, or it's not an indictment on Jolie. It's more a testament to the depth of this receiver core that's really looked strong and has shown that multiple different options can break out. The two true sophomore options in Terrell Anderson and Keenan Jackson have been really solid options. Noah Rogers has sort of not taken the leap that I think I know when Daniel and I talked about it a few months ago, we expected him to be the breakout candidate, and he hasn't been that, but he's been solid. And they've gotten contributions from a different receiver in almost every game. And I think there was sort of an expected dependence on Jolie to be that guy week in and week out, and he is leading the team in receptions, but it doesn't feel like he's certainly an asset, but they don't feel overly dependent on him, which I think has been a surprise for me for sure, and I'm sure for a lot of people watching this team. Second biggest surprise, I mean, I knew Hollywood Smothers was a talented running back. I had some questions about his ability to work behind this offensive line that hadn't worked a lot together. He just doesn't even need an offensive line. That's how phenomenal he's been. 112 carries, 739 yards on the season, just five touchdowns. So a little bit behind the top notch backs in the nation in that regard, but an unbelievable athlete to watch. Breaks tackles constantly, shifty, elusive, smart when he runs the football, leads on the sidelines. Every single one of his teammates raves about him. Just couldn't be a more valuable member of this team. He's certainly in the conversation to be an all ACC team member. I honestly, if I was a voter, he would be my first team back for the ACC. I don't see anybody else in the conference that's been as effective on the ground as he has and more valuable to his team. And the games where he's not, getting into the end zone or rushing for over 100 yards, it feels like NC State's offense is just stuck in slow motion. And that's just a testament to how important getting him going is and giving him those holes that he can operate in because he can only make so many guys miss every game. And he's just really, really been phenomenal. And I think more than Dave Doran in this coaching staff bargained for. My third surprise, we heard a lot about how great Sebastian Harsh was in fall camp, and we heard about the veteran leadership that Kean Sloan brought from Utah State and their Mountain West connection. But I don't think either of these guys, I mean, I'm sure they expected that they were this good, but I don't think the prediction by anybody was that they would be true game wreckers with ceilings that could get them to the next level. These two guys, I mean, Pat Narduzzi, certainly, I know some Wolfpack fans were not in full agreement with his opinion that NC State is the most talented team that Pitt has faced so far this season, but I don't think he's far off when he's talking about Harsh and Sloan being the best defensive edge rusher duo that they've faced this season. They haven't really seen anything like this. These two guys are operating around, players that haven't produced to the level that they have, and they've still found ways to be effective without help and with some issues in the secondary and Sloan's had to do a little bit of everything, and Harsh has sort of made up for some deficiencies that this defense has against the run, which I don't think is I don't think that's what he would say his specialty is. He's a defensive end. He wants to sack the quarterback. And I mean his speed, his ability to set the edge, he's they both have filled so many holes for this defense with their leadership and with their experience and with all these young players being plugged in and played with all the injuries mounting up. It's been super, super impressive to watch these two guys. And I think once again, I don't think anybody but DJ Elliott who went in the portal and identified positions of need and identified these two players. I don't think anybody expected them to be this productive, but I could be wrong. I don't know. I'm not in the coach's room. They might have known all along that these guys just needed the spotlight, and they they've received it, and they've done more than I think what was asked of them to do. So, um, just really, really phenomenal performances from Sebastian Harsh and Kean Sloan through the first 7 weeks, and we'll see how they finish things up. The fourth surprise of the season has been cornerback Devin Marshall's breakout season. He called himself Marshall Island on Tuesday. He's proven to be an elite man corner. He can do it all. He's clearly comfortable being in that position, allows very few yards after catch. If guys make a catch on him, he's putting them on the ground almost immediately. I believe it's only 15 yards after the catch on the season, maybe even less than that. No, it's 15 receptions that he's allowed on 30 targets this season. Marshall is, in a word, an alpha for this defense, and you notice that with him in fall camp, he had this air of confidence around him that was really different than some of the other players, and to be that lockdown corner, you look at the guys in the NFL, these guys are crazy. They want to win almost as much as any other position, if not more than any other position. They take great pride in their work, and they carve out their section of the football field and they make it theirs. And he has that mindset. He has that edge, even though he's not the biggest guy on the field. He just finds ways to be effective for this NC State team. He's under 6 feet tall, and he just is a confident young player that I think has a bright future beyond the college game. There's always a value on defensive backs that can tackle and that can cover in man defenses because the other stuff can be taught. And he's clearly got some leadership qualities. He's taken these younger players under his wing and tried to help them. He talked about, over the bye week meeting as a secondary as just players and trying to, get the chemistry there, help these young guys fit and learn and improve this defense on the fly. You don't see that a lot from college football players, and he's taken it upon himself to fill that role, which has really been impressive to see for a young football player. My final surprise is a negative on the season, something I didn't totally expect, especially given the way he started the season with his accuracy. But it's just really come apart a couple times. CJ Bailey's turnovers. Um, I get that they were losing in some of these in the two games that the six of the seven interceptions have come in. NC State got behind. He's pressing, and two of the picks in the Notre Dame game. Notre Dame has elite secondary players, so I'm not gonna put these all on him. But I mean, you can't win football games throwing three interceptions. It's just shocking, and I think some of it is pressing, and I think that's somewhat of a coaching issue. You got to help him realize that that's not important. And in his post-game press conference after the Notre Dame game, he said he's going to go out swinging. He wants to make plays, and I totally agree. I think you got to go out swinging, but it reaches a point where when you're giving the other team extra possessions in a game that your defense is desperately trying to give you a chance in, which was the case in that Notre Dame game, you got to find other ways to extend plays other than, scrambling around and firing it to the other team. That's just unacceptable. And he clearly feels that he hasn't been pressing and he has been really accurate. He has a completion percentage over 70% despite that poor performance against Notre Dame. Even in the Duke game, he threw for over 300 yards and completed 29 of his 39 passes. But you can tell when teams are able to pressure him, he's really not there yet. And that'll be kind of the next evolution of his game. Couldn't be more impressed with his overall performance. Some of his throws, at the beginning of the year, I think some he's lost a little bit of power on his throws. I've noticed that over the last couple games, but early in the season, his deep balls were on ropes, and I don't know if that's a confidence issue. I don't know if it's just a coaching thing. They've kind of tried to help him sort of loft the ball a little bit more, or I'm not sure what's going on there, but I think, the turnovers are a little bit surprising for a sophomore. I would have thought that, that's something that they would have drilled into him throughout this offseason. And we'll see if, he can clean that up and go 5 games without turning the ball. He might not turn the ball over 3 times like he did in 2 different games. And if you take those 2 games out, he has 1 pick. That wasn't, it was he threw it over the middle and the guy beat his man to the ball. That's what happened in that East Carolina game on that interception. So I think these are mistakes that can be corrected. And that was such a point of emphasis by Doran. And his press conference on Monday was everything that NC State is doing is about execution, which I agree with somewhat. I do think there was a pretty wide talent discrepancy in moments in that Notre Dame game that was pretty evident. And, there's only so much you can do when the other team is that much more talented in certain spots. And sometimes that's just football in the college world. That's just how the cookie crumbles. And I think there's certainly truth to his point that a lot of this is execution. And I think Bailey is kind of the prime example of that. I think Dorn said if you had asked him if he was going to play like that, or if he thought he was going to play like that going into the game, and he wouldn't have thought that ever the way he practiced. And so, it goes back to that complementary football point. They have to find a way to be consistent on in all phases of every game. And Bailey being consistent without turning the ball over is such a huge part of that. And if that happens, that gives everybody else on the field confidence. And I think that could help NC State turn this thing around here in the last 5 games. So those are my 5 biggest surprises of the 2025 football season. We got 5 games to go here with the NC State Wolfpack. I'll be covering the rest of the way as always. Wolfpack are on the road on Saturday against Pitt. We'll get our game prep going in the next couple days, run you through, what you need to know about Pitt, what you need to know about NC State's prep. Dorn's going to talk one more time today, and we will break that down for you. So, as always, if you want more content, go ahead and hit up my social media feed at Senate Tucker on X. Posted a new article about Pitt's elite rush defense. You can find out more about that and how NC State is going to combat that in this game. You can also find more articles on the Wolfpack on SI Twitter and, of course, the website. And if you want daily episodes of the NC State Insider Podcast, go ahead and subscribe to the sports videos on SI YouTube channel. You can get all of our college coverage right there. Have a great day, everybody, and we'll see you next time.